Velleman.
Okay. So I also have a book. Yeah. But it's already written, so no input there. And maybe input on the website, and it's for free. But I understood from my professor who worked with me on this book that books are for free anyway. So he wrote a lot of books, and he's trying to earn money with it, but the Chinese copy them all. So you can just download them all. Okay, so I researched for about a period of 2 or 3 years, maybe feels like 20, but for a long time I researched why municipalities do not succeed in implementing web accessibility standards. And it seems a fairly simple question because it is obligatory, as we heard. So if you ask people, so what should we organize? Well, you don't have to organize anything if it is obligatory. It's just the law, so you just do it. So everyone is just doing it. And still, after many years, we're still not there. So that's where I looked at. So this is the book, if you want to download it. Yeah. So first, to say that we don't have to do anything if we want to make websites accessible, because it's already built in. So that makes the thing easy. So it's fundamentally designed to work for all people, whatever their hardware, software, language, culture, location, or physical or mental ability. That is what the W3C website says. And that's where they make HTML and all the technologies that we use on the web. And they also say that the impact of disability is radically changed on the web because the web removes barriers to communication and interaction that many people face in the physical world. So, this should be the end of my presentation. Because it's already there. You don't have to do anything. It's built in automatically. But still, they made accessibility guidelines at the W3C, and they define accessibility, so there are a lot of definitions of accessibility. So I think I found more than 120 definitions of accessibility, and some of them are really strange. So you should, if you just Google, we are the Google generation, so if you just Google accessibility, you'll find definitions of accessibility that will really sort of make you question your existence, maybe even. Did help me question my existence. So, accessibility, websites, software, mobile applications, and the internet or web of things. So the W3C doesn't call it the internet of things, but the web of things, because they are web people, are perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust for all people, whatever their hardware, software, language, location, or ability. So this is the formal definition of accessibility. Good. So then the first question I get after presenting that you don't have to do anything for accessibility because it's already built in, and the definition of accessibility, and I present that and people ask me, okay, but how many people are there exactly? For whom am I doing this? So I thought the answer would be fairly simple. Again, these are the research things that you just look up. You think okay, how many people with disabilities are there? So you type that into Google, and you hope that you get this one graph where everybody agrees. And then you get these maybe thousands or millions of different pages, all with different numbers. Even from the same organization, I had an organization for the handicapped in the Netherlands, or even the Ministry of Health in the Netherlands. There are links online where you can find different numbers for people with disabilities. So I thought, well, the one organization that would know it for the Netherlands would be the CBS, the Statistics Netherlands, Centraal Bureau voor de Statistiek. But they don't agree either. Yeah. So, and this is the result if you look into their database. And then it's much too small font, but just to make it clear for you, the number of persons with disability, it depends on the scale you're using. So there is a Gali scale and a OECD scale. So on the Gali scale, 27.2% of all people have a disability. And on the OECD scale, 12.3% have a disability. So it depends on what reason you're looking for. So if you're very much into accessibility, you always use the Gali scale. And other people who think it's less important or don't want to spend too much money on it, they'll probably use the OECD scale. So, yeah, and then an interesting thing on this, I don't know if I have a pointer here, but the interesting thing is completely at the right, that is the number of people using assistive devices, which is sort of shocking, because only a small percentage of people use assistive devices. So it's like for hearing, like 4.7%, and it's, I think I made an error there, it should be older than 4 years. And for vision, it's 63%, and for movement, it's 6%. So there are assistive devices, but still 40% of blind or visually impaired people are not using them. And these numbers are larger if you look at dyslexia and, well, other disabilities. So in the Netherlands, roughly, there are 2.2 million people with a disability. In Europe, 80 million. There's a growing number of elderly, and don't forget people with temporary or situational disabilities. So these beautiful images where people sit in the sun and enjoy the sunlight and then lie on the grass working on their laptop. Don't know if anyone tried that here. Anyone tried that here? On the grass in the sun with your laptop? No one? Oh, one. Yeah, okay, yeah. So it doesn't, no, it doesn't work. No. But I tried it just to be sure. So I waited for a sunny day, which can take a long time in the Netherlands, and then suddenly there is sun, so you have to run out of your house, and then I live in you call that an urban area, so there's not a lot of grass, and where there is grass, you have to search it first, because there are more dogs than grass in our surroundings, so you have to search it, and then once you find a place where you can lie out, and then open your laptop, start a screen, and then the sun is gone. So, okay. So I asked people, so what do you think, what is important for you when you look at accessibility? So how does it help you? What advantages do you see? So, and then the respondents in my research are all municipalities. So I'll get back to that later, so maybe this is also interesting for other people, but for the moment, limited to people who work for municipalities in the Netherlands. And they say it helps for better quality of their website. 81% recognizes that making their website accessible improves the quality of the website. They want to be accessible for all citizens. So, and this one, I don't have a percentage behind it because it came out of the interviews. I interviewed a lot of people asking them, so why would you make your website accessible? And then I would expect well, because it's the law. And, well, that's because you have to. But nobody said because of the law. And when I said, well, come on, it's because of the law, isn't it? And then they went, no, it's because we want to be accessible for all citizens. Yeah. Okay, they also wanted to be better findable in search engines. 59% less complaints about website or app. So they really experience, I mean, this doesn't mean that it's true, but this is what they think, that is what they experience, what they perceive. So they perceive less complaints about their website or app. They perceive less questions through other channels. So this is like people who take the phone or write emails or old-fashioned letters. And they say citizens must be able to digitally interact with their government, which is also the law, I think, since 2017. And then of course, there is the law, which nobody thought was important. But there are a lot of laws, just not limited to the Netherlands. So there are also laws in the United States. So if you're a company, but this was about municipalities, but if you're a company, then you have laws in different countries. So if you have a, how do you call it, part of your company is in Portugal, for instance. I think in Portugal, if your website is not accessible, you can pay up to 80,000 euros for a fine. In Norway, they just do the warning at the moment. But if you go to the United States, that's even more fun. So if your website is not accessible there, then they have like drive-by lawsuits, I think they call it. So yeah, that's really fun. I think the current lowest settlement number is like $54,000. So the only thing you have to do if you have a disability is find a website with an accessibility error, then sue them, and you're almost sure you'll get $54,000. So if you do that once a month, I mean, yeah. Yeah. So any blind people in the room here? No one? Well, okay, but so that would be a nice tip for them to move to the United States. Okay. Or just for 2 months or something. Well, that would be nice. Cash $108,000 and then go back to the Netherlands. Buy a nice house. Or maybe stay for 4 months and then buy a nice house. And then, it depends on where you want to buy the house. But okay, so something else. So what is the actual situation? In 2006, about 5% of all municipalities and government websites in the Netherlands were accessible. And the others were not. So that was the yellow one. And in 2018, we measured them again, and about a bit less than 1% was accessible. So well, that would indicate that websites have become less accessible. And that's not true, because websites have become more accessible. So what do these numbers tell us? Well, these numbers tell us, and my research, tell us that accessibility is not a technical, but an organizational issue. You can have one really enthusiastic person, as the previous speaker said, but then when this person goes away, the subject has gone. So it is an organizational thing. It is a responsibility of the organization to organize accessibility. So if you have 2 failed success criteria, that answers the compliance question. So do you comply with the law? Well, you have 2 failures, so no. But it doesn't answer the question, do you have any reporting about the process? Have you taken any measures? Is there a plan, do, check, act thing active in your organization? What have you organized? We can't see that in these figures. And it's one of the problems that we see. That I think this is the explanation, well, I've proven that this is the explanation for the fact that we have difficulty implementing standards to be fully without failures in the Netherlands. And we see the same problem coming at us in Europe. So Europe has devised a directive, the Directive 2016-2102, for whoever likes numbers. And this directive is only about compliance. So it only measures success, failure, and not applicable. So it doesn't look at, does your organization organize measures, do they plan, do they check, what are they doing to further accessibility? They don't look at that at all. So I can see a problem in the next years, and that's the same problem we have had in the Netherlands. Since 2006, all municipalities have worked on accessibility, and as you have seen on the graph, none of them are fully compliant. So the same thing will happen to us in Europe. So we have to add something to it. So I researched factors influencing implementation and maturity, and I found processes and factors and indicators and indices, and made a list of questions. And I think if you combine all this, you can sort of make a form out of it. And if you fill out the form, then you would sort of automatically see what the things are that you have done. and the things that you still have to do as an organization. And the processes that I found are these, and I put a plus behind them if I really found scientific proof for it. So scientific proof meaning that there is a relation, a correlation between the process and the actual measurement figures of the websites that we checked of the organizations. So I sent organizations a list of questions, really small list, like 74 questions or something, and it only took them like an hour to fill it out. So, but as a result, they would receive the full report of their website, and I correlated these two data with each other. And the outcome is, if you develop knowledge and awareness in your organization, that's a first step towards implementing accessibility. The involvement of top management. So organizations that don't have a top manager responsible for accessibility score lower on accessibility. Adaptation of organizational plans and structures. So do you have a plan? Do you have a strategy as an organization? Have you organized something? Is it in the task descriptions of your content providers? Things like that. So if you organize that in your municipality, or I think broader in any organization, it will be easier to implement accessibility standards. Legal issues, monitoring and reporting, deploying financial resources, applying information systems, and involvement of people with disabilities. So the interesting thing is that deploying financial resources there was no correlation with the results. So it seems from my research that adding extra money isn't the solution to accessibility. So for anyone interested in, I won't read all these, so these are the indicators. So every process has a number of indicators that I researched, and the research results show which indicators are more important or less important. So based on these indicators, you can ask questions. So do you have, for instance, training and skills? So you could say, like, is there a training plan, or have you organized training for the people who generate content? Well, questions like this, if you answer them, you will get sort of an insight in where you stand as an organization. And it also gives you sort of an inspiration about what to do in your organization, what to organize. So this is not something for a single person to go and do, but this is something that the organization has to organize. So, and then you can draw it into a grid, and if you have a lot of green in it, so there's green blocks, the blue blocks you get as a present. So it means that you're organizing everything ad hoc. So this is what, to be honest, I also saw organizations that don't even do the ad hoc part. So they get a complaint, and then they just sort of panic, or they all go on a vacation, or they say, well, we'll see again Monday if the complaint is still there, and then, or they just accidentally delete it, or, well, nobody ever thinks about it again. So I've seen many different, it's like my children at home. So there are like 5 levels. In fact, there are only 3, so you can have the basic activity, you can do basic activities, which is level 2. You can sort of put it into documents and organize it, which is level 3, and you can really manage it, which is level 4, and then level 5 is like AAA in Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, so it's only the nice-to-haves and things that you always wished for, like I want sign language on my website. Well, you can do that, but that's sort of optimized. So then a few practical tips, because this is a lot of research. So, and as I said, you can download it for free. and read it. And then just to, for your information, because I heard that some people find that 284 pages of boring text, and I put some images in it, so just to make it less boring and less text, but some people complain about that, so if you want reading advice, then just do the conclusion at the end, which is still a large number of pages, but there are really practical tips in there. Practical tips for you as an organization, and practical tips if you are a technical person. And practical tips if you want to talk to your supplier. Because suppliers are really, well, okay, I won't start about that. That's really, yeah. Yeah, so now, well, I'll share it with you. One of the frustrations in the interviews that I had was that people work really hard to make their website or app accessible, and then they have a company with technology, and this company doesn't have time, doesn't have capacity, or just ask more and more money to make changes for accessibility. So that is the thing that is sort of frustrating them in becoming accessible or implementing the guidelines. So a few practical tips. Appoint a person with top management responsibility, like a chief accessibility officer, sounds so good, or a chief compliance officer, the CAO or the CCO. Everybody wants to be something like that. So provide a realistic and phased plan and start with low-hanging fruits. Don't even know if low-hanging fruits is like English, but it's, yeah. But in Dutch it is laaghangend fruit, but it's so, yeah. Yeah. Well, I Googled it, of course, but there was a lot of like interglot or something. It had a lot of alternatives, but it didn't sound like right, so I should have asked the previous speaker. Yeah. Yeah. Include accessibility in your service level agreement. So I found that there are municipalities who have service level agreements with content providers inside their organization. So that's like, so you sort of sign a contract. So you want to write something on the website. Oh, right, I have here this 20-page contract for you. Can you just sign it? And on page 29, there is that it should be accessible. Then acquisition, procurement contracts, task descriptions, plans, rules, procedures, and check delivered goods. So many people just think that providers of technology speak the truth, and they don't. No, it's like that. Then you get your website. And then you ask them like, oh, okay, so I asked you to make it accessible. So did you do that? And they're like, yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, but you know that, did you use because you never stop at one question. I just learned yesterday evening that you also always have to ask 4 questions, and then you get the truth. So, but most people stop at 2 questions. So they say like, yeah, but did you use WCAG 2.something1? And then this guy is like, yeah, we did. Yeah. Now, check delivered goods. And if you don't have the knowledge to check them yourself, ask somebody else. And somewhere in your contract, do what the Rijksoverheid in the Netherlands, don't know the English word for Rijksoverheid, it's the central government in the Netherlands. What they do, they put in their contract a line that if it is not accessible and you don't repair it within a certain an acceptable time, that you give them the right to hire another organization to do the work for you, and you have to pay for it. That's a nice contract. Yeah. So organize yearly monitoring, awareness, information and knowledge, training and skills about digital accessibility. Involve persons with disabilities. And that's just important for awareness. So if I've spoken to teams that are like, for instance, hospitals. I spoke to hospitals. It was like 6 or 7 months ago. And they asked them, well, don't you think you should make your website accessible? And they answered, why? And yeah, I mean, sort of, yeah, so, and then you show a person with a disability, a person who is blind, using a braille line and reading their website, and then skipping large parts of it because it isn't read to them on their screen reader. And then all these people are like, no, you have to go to the menu. But I can't go to the menu. And then they see the frustration of somebody with a disability. So nothing works as good as that. But then be sure to not leave these people alone, but then send them to a training or something, because I've also seen that people are so motivated by a blind person giving a demonstration of their website that the same evening and night they worked with the whole team to make the website accessible. And the next day, the website was more accessible than it was the day before, less accessible than the day it was before. And then tools. A lot of people, in the questions that I asked, have you worked on accessibility? Do you think your website is accessible? And 88% of organizations said yes. And I did not find one website that had less than 3 errors. And most of these errors were really barriers. So it was a login page where you would only hear, if you were blind, you would only hear button, button, button. And the one would be for a username, the other one for password, and then the third would actually be a button, but you'd never know. So it's sort of a guessing game. But it's not a nice game. So tools only measure 5 to 15% of the WCAG 2.1 AA guidelines and provide an up-to-date accessibility statement on your website. Except some tools measure more. I have to be careful here. I have the tool people sitting right in front, really close. So they do measure more, but could I say that they measure like 5 to 15% full guidelines?
Probably like 20.
Okay, 20. Okay, I'll settle for 20 then. So I'll change my presentation tonight. Change it to 20. Well, I did it the Italian way now, or how do you call it? And so you start with a low number, and then they, and then somewhere in the middle you meet. So I would have hoped that they would have said 30 or 40, and then we would have ended on 20, but I can agree with them. I could have gone to, I would have gone to 17 and a half then. Yeah. Okay. Now, but be careful. There are still a lot of guidelines that cannot be measured by a tool. Thank you.
Thank you. You surprised me a little